All right, so this is the ad redesign critique, and this is video one. So there are going to be some things that I'm going to go into more detail on in this video that I'm not going to cover in the other videos as detailed. So I'll say something along the lines of go back and watch video one for references. All right, so we'll start with this example. The first thing I want to point out, and this is again something that's great for everyone, is that we have these internal margins when we're designing in InDesign and when we're designing for print. They usually look-ish about this. And as a reminder, these are just the internal margins that say, hey, this is the safe space to design. So anything that's outside of this margin is likely to get cut off. So in this case, you have the end of your words here that are going to cause some issue, and then it's possible that you wouldn't even see very much of your image that you have here at the top. So my suggestion would be anything that you have that you want to be visible and make sure will print properly for this print project, you'd want to make sure is within that boundary. So that could just be as simple as dropping that down. When it comes to looking at this specific project, this is a magazine ad, so it's not a poster, and that's going to apply to pretty much everybody across the board. So when we look at text size and things like that, we really don't need things to be as big as they are sometimes. If you look at great magazine ads, you'll see often the type is really what plays second fiddle to the imagery. Right now, it looks like we've built some imagery by adding these shapes and things like that rather than using a central image. And I would encourage you to see, can you find an image that will do a lot of the talking for you, and to make sure that you have something to draw people in, because generally people aren't fully drawn in by text. So when we look at the alignment in this example, right now we have, I think, pretty much almost all the types of alignment you can have, and they're aligned to different areas of the page. So we have left alignment here, but it's not aligned to the left margin. And then we have center alignment, and then we have left alignment, and we have right alignment, and then we also have right alignment to a different point here. So the suggestion I'm going to have for you up front is to make sure that you are simplifying your alignment. It's better to have one type of alignment, potentially two, depending on how you organize the information. But right now, the way we have all this, it actually draws our eye to the space between these pockets of information rather than the information itself, because our eye is looking for a break. So I'm going to suggest really focusing in on imagery and alignment. As far as the type you have, it's legible. I think as it gets smaller, it will still maintain its legibility. You have all the information required. Just right now, we've created some decorative items that just appear to be maybe for the sake of decoration, like these guys here. And I think you can continue to improve that by looking for a print quality image that will carry some of the heavy lifting for you. All right, so this is a really lovely image, and I like how clean it is and how bright it is. It doesn't give you a lot of issues with legibility, but I think it does create some problems for you, which I can kind of see that you already found, and that is there's not really a lot of negative space inside this image for you to put text over. So we have this big area up top, and then we have a lot of information on this ad that has to be included, but right now it's kind of just like chunked around the elements inside the image. So my suggestion is going to be to either use your Photoshop skills to Photoshop out this hand and the pot, to Photoshop that out and to use this space to have your imagery, or to find a different photograph. So either way, I think it's appropriate and fine. With wood grain, it might be a little tedious to try to Photoshop this out, so it may be easier for you to find a different picture. But then we also have information that's kind of spread out all over the page, and visual hierarchy wise, I'm not really certain where you want me to look after I leave the top. This thick borderline that you have here, there's a border repeated down here. I can see it working maybe at the top, but at the bottom, it's kind of cramming the text all together, and it's a different color, but it has more contrast than the text color inside. So I would probably drop it off of both of them, play with the typography on this to maybe be a little bit more expressive, or leave it simple, whichever is fine. But right now, the boxes are kind of causing this further segmentation. So as far as grouping, we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 different groups of information. This looks like phone numbers, which we'd expect to be in proximity to the address and to the website. So I think there's some restructuring, and when you have more space inside your image, that'll make more sense. But be careful with your alignment too, because this is left aligned to the page. this is almost justified, this is right aligned, this is right aligned, but not to another point on the page. So some restructuring will help that as well. All right, so it looks like you created your own imagery, which I think is a really cool concept, but right now it's looking a little underdeveloped. So we have like some places where the lines don't really match up. We have these grass pieces, but as you like get a little closer in, they look a little bit unpolished and they don't really match stylistically with the ground aspect that you have. So I would either continue honing that or look for a different image, because you want this to be professional quality, portfolio quality that you have there. This information at the top is like the least most important, but you've given it pretty primo placement by putting it at the top. So I would restructure that guy. Same information as the first critique in this video about sizing, which will free up a lot of space for you. Your alignment is pretty good, but your visual hierarchy is not quite there yet. There's a lot of competing levels of information. So I think once you make everything smaller, that will continue to help. When you have an element that you're putting text inside, it's almost really valuable to kind of create a margin for yourself to give breathing room to the inside edge of that object. So not for print purposes, but just so that it doesn't feel so crowded, because right now kind of feels like we're about to shove out of these edges in a really tricky way. So I would continue working on that. And then color wise, you have a lot of different color going on. All the text is one color, but then it actually has less contrast than these white lines. We have this blue background, we have green and dark green and brown. So I would simplify the use of color, and that could just be as simple as, instead of this being purple, it being white, or some things like that to play with. Okay, I love that you are going with almost like an old school kind of poster feel. The challenge that has come up with this, and I'm sure you've already kind of recognized it, is to fill in some of these places. It ends up getting a little bit of like decorative for the sake of decoration. So things like these arrows would follow that way, these check plants, which are kind of confusing because usually check marks are at the beginning of things. The alignment's a little bit funky in these areas. This guy is a do not use typeface, and the way that you have stacked the colors, it looks a little bit like an outline, though I see that it's not like a true outline. So I like that you pushed it and you looked for something different because you wanted to like use the space, and I think that's good. Also, this is not a poster, as I mentioned in the first critique in this video. So I think we actually need to simplify and remove the decorative elements and focus on readability and remove the typefaces, because right now I think the biggest thing that, like, I'm seeing the name of this and then the 24-hour shipping. Those are like level 1 and level 2, and then it's so busy that my eyes like, I don't really know that we need to read the rest of this. And then this guy falls pretty squarely into the clip art zone, especially with the gradient. So I would find some different visuals or a different visual to help with that.